clouds and let them be. Keep every story of your days a mystery. Hear the songs in the breeze. Sing out your wins and trials like a melody. Ride the storms with your head held high. We only breathe till the day we die. Bring on the fire, bring on the rain. Nothing can take you down. Crashing like thunder, steel in your veins. Nothing can take you down. Light a flame inside your heart. See every finish line before you reach the start. Raise your fist to the sky. Lightning and mountaintops are made for you and I. Morning comes when the nightfall goes. Don't turn back to the road below. Bring on the fire, bring on the rain. Nothing can take you down. Crashing like thunder, steel in your veins. Nothing can take you down. Bring on the fire, bring on the rain. Nothing can take you down. Crashing like thunder, steel in your veins. Nothing can take you down. Nothing can take you down.
Well, I am back once again, live right here on all the things. I think we're on YouTube, Facebook in a couple spots, Periscope over there on Twitter, and we're also on Twitch. If you guys are jumping in and you want to join me, feel free to hop up in the chat. I'm going to be reading a couple chapters from the book of John, from the Gospel of John tonight, and then kind of giving some thoughts as they come to me, just some quick little pontification, you know, to express myself in an annoying fashion. Hopefully it's not too annoying. Hopefully it's encouraging. That is my goal. If for those that don't know who I am, my name is Joshua Verwers, and my whole goal is to really encourage you to live by faith. So that's what we're doing. We're hopping on here. We're going to just kind of see what's going on, do a little bit of Bible reading because, well, we can. It's kind of interesting. I've got, I noticed Trey Van Camp hopping over here in the chat and saying, "You're putting in work today." It is a three-peat. That is correct. This is actually the third live stream that I have done today. This morning, Jared Brown from the channel Abide of Brownie and I, we did our Vlogpastors podcast at about 10 a.m. And then this afternoon, Trey had me over on his channel in a live stream. I think it was about 3 p.m. that we did that. And now here we are at 7 p.m. and we're doing number 3 for the day, so I am definitely putting in work. I was telling him that I am going to be ready to crash hard. So we got Evan Briscoe also hopping in the chat. Evan, good to see you. Glad you are here. Mom is over in her gazebo sitting and watching, which we love. And then we got the dude. The dude is back once again. He's been jumping in the chats this week and just kind of catching in. So it's good to see you. I am glad you're all here. We're going to get ready and just jump straight into the Bible and start reading it. I forgot to set up my screen, so I'm hoping that it's not too far off. If it is, well, I'll do some quick modification and quick adjustments, and we'll be good to go. And then, of course, as you guys, if you've got anything that jumps out at you, I would love to hear it. When we're reading through this, if there's anything that God's really putting on your heart, any part of the scripture that just stands out, by all means, please let me know. I would love to hear that. You guys have just as much control over this as I do. Okay, maybe not quite as much. I got a little bit more. But what I'm saying is I want to include you in this. It's all about reading the Bible with me, not read the Bible for me or read the Bible as I read. I don't know what I'm talking about. Did I mention this is number 3 live stream for the day? My brother Matt Goody in the house. What is up, buddy? I don't even know how to respond to that. It was a simple enough question, and I just couldn't do it. You know what is up? The NFL draft is starting right now. I'm supporting my Minnesota Vikings. Hoping they get some good numbers here in, I think we got number 22 and number 23, and being an Iowa guy, I'm really hoping that we can pick up A.J. Epineza, because that would just be phenomenal for me. I would love it. All right, well, if you guys are ready, I know I'm ready. Let's go ahead and let's jump in the Bible and let's see if I actually have this framed up pretty good. Ooh, so close. So close. Look how close I had that. All right, we are good. We are reading in John chapter 8 and then John chapter 9. So on your mark, get set, and let's go. John chapter 9. No, chapter 8. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives early in the morning. He came to the temple courts again, and the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The experts in the law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught committing adultery. They made her stand in front of them and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone to death such women. What then do you say?" Now they were asking this in an attempt to trap him, so that they could bring charges against him. Jesus bent down and wrote on the ground with his finger. When they persisted in asking him, he stood up straight and replied, "Whoever among you is guiltless may be the first to throw a stone at her." Then he bent over again and wrote on the ground. Now when they heard this, they began to drift away one at a time, starting with the older ones, until Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up straight and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Did no one condemn you?" She replied, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "I do not condemn you either. Go, and from now on, do not sin anymore." Then Jesus spoke out again, "I am the light of the world. The one who follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." So the Pharisees objected, "You testify about yourself. Your testimony is not true." And Jesus answered, "Even if I testify about myself, my testimony is true, because I know where I came from and where I am going. But you people do not know where I came from or where I am going. You people judge by outward appearances. I do not judge anyone. But if I judge, my evaluation is accurate, because I am not alone when I judge, but I and the Father who sent me do so together. It is written in your law that the testimony of 2 men is true. I testify about myself, and the Father who sent me testifies about me." Then they began asking him, "Who is your Father?" Jesus answered, "You do not know either me or my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father too." Jesus spoke these words near the offering box while he was teaching in the temple courts. No one seized him, because his time had not yet come. Then Jesus said to them again, "I am going away, and you will look for me, but will die in your sin. Where I am going, you cannot come." So the Jewish leaders began to say, "Perhaps he is going to kill himself, because he says, 'Where I am going, you cannot come.'" Jesus replied, "You people are from below. I am from above. You people are from this world. I am not from this world. Thus I told you that you will die in your sins, for unless you believe that I am he, you will die in your sins. So they said to him, Who are you? Jesus replied, What I have told you from the beginning. I have many things to say to you and to judge about you. But the Father who sent me is truthful, and the things I have heard from him I speak to the world. They did not understand that he was telling them about his Father. Then Jesus said, When you lift up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am he, and I do nothing on my own initiative, but I speak just what the Father taught me, and the one whom sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, because I always do those things that please him. While he was saying these things, many people believed in him. Then Jesus said to those Judeans who had believed him, If you come to follow my teaching, you are really my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. We are descendants of Abraham, they replied, and have never been anyone's slaves. How can you say you will become free? Jesus answered them, I tell you the solemn truth. Everyone who practices sin is a slave of sin. The slave does not remain in the family forever, but the Son remains forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will really be free. I know that you are Abraham's descendants, but you want to kill me because my teaching makes no progress among you. I am telling you the things I have seen while with the Father. As for you, practice the things you have heard from the Father. They answered him, Abraham is our father. Jesus replied, If you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the deeds of Abraham. But now you are trying to kill me, a man who has told you the truth I heard from God. Abraham did not do this. You people are doing the deeds of your father. Then they said to Jesus, We are not born as a result of immorality. We have only one Father, God himself. Jesus replied, If God were your father, you would love me, for I have come from God and am now here. I have not come on my own initiative, but he sent me. Why don't you understand what I am saying? It is because you cannot accept my teaching. You people are far from your father, the devil, or you are from your father, the devil, and you want to do what your father desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not uphold the truth because there is no truth in him. Whenever he speaks, there he lies, according to his own nature, because he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I am telling you the truth, you do not believe me. Who among you can prove me guilty of any sin? If I am telling you the truth, why don't you believe me? The one who belongs to God listens and responds to God's word. You don't listen and respond because you don't belong to God. The Judeans replied, Aren't we correct in saying that you are a Samaritan and are possessed by a demon? Jesus answered, I am not possessed by a demon, but I honor my Father, and yet you dishonor me. I am not trying to get praise for myself. There is one who demands it, and he also judges. I tell you the solemn truth, if anyone obeys my teaching, he will never see death. Then the Judeans responded, Now we know you're possessed by a demon. Both Abraham and the prophets died, and yet you say, if anyone obeys my teaching, he will never experience death. You aren't greater than our father Abraham who died, are you? And the prophets died too. Who do you claim to be? Jesus replied, If I glorify myself, my glory is worthless. The one who glorifies me is my Father, about whom you people say, He is our God. Yet you do not know him, but I know him. If I were to say that I do not know him, I would be a liar like you. But I do know him, and I obey his teaching. Your father Abraham was overjoyed to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. Then the Judeans replied, You are not yet 50 years old. Have you seen Abraham? Then Jesus said to them, I tell you the solemn truth, before Abraham came into existence, I am. Then they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out from the temple area. Chapter 9. Now as Jesus was passing by, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who committed this sin that caused him to be born blind, this man or his parents? Jesus answered, Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but he was born blind so that the act of God may be revealed through what happens to him. We must perform the deeds of the one who sent me as long as it is daytime. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." Having said this, he spat on the ground and made some mud with the saliva. He smeared the mud in the blind man's eyes and said to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which is translated sent. So the blind man went away and washed, and came back seeing. Then the neighbors and the people who had seen him previously as a beggar began saying, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Some people said, "This is the man," while others said, "No, but he looks like him." The man himself kept insisting, "I am the one." So they asked him, "How then were you made to see?" He replied, "The man called Jesus made mud, smeared it on my eyes, told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed and was able to see." They said to him, "Where is this man?" He replied, "I don't know." They brought the man who used to be blind to the Pharisees. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and caused him to see was the Sabbath. So the Pharisees asked him again how he had gained his sight. He replied, "He put mud in my eyes and washed, and now I am able to see." Then some of the Pharisees began to say, "This man is not from God, because he does not observe the Sabbath." But others said, "How can a man who is a sinner perform such miraculous signs?" Thus there was a division among them. So again they asked the man who used to be blind, "What do you say about him, since he caused you to see?" "He is a prophet," the man replied. Now the Jewish religious leaders refused to believe that he had really been blind and had gained his sight, until at last they summoned the parents of the man who had become able to see. They asked the parents, "Is this your son, whom you say was born blind? Then how does he now see?" So his parents replied, "We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. But we do not know how he is able to see, nor do we know who caused him to see. Ask him. He's a mature adult. He will speak for himself." His parents said these things because they were afraid of the Jewish religious leaders. For the Jewish leaders had already agreed that anyone who confessed Jesus to be the Christ would be put out of the synagogue. For this reason his parents said, "He is a mature adult. Ask him." Then they summoned the man who used to be blind a second time and said to him, "Promise before God to tell the truth. We know that this man is a sinner." He replied, "I do not know whether he is a sinner. I do know one thing, that although I was blind, now I can see." Then they said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he cause you to see?" He answered, "I told you already, and you didn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? You people don't want to become his disciples too, do you?" They heaped insults upon him, saying, "You are his disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses. We do not know where this man comes from." The man replied, "This is a remarkable thing, that you don't know where he comes from, and yet he caused me to see. We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but if anyone is devout and does his will, God listens to him. Never before has anyone heard of someone causing a man born blind to see. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." They replied, "You were born completely in sinfulness, and yet you presume to teach us?" So they threw him out. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, so he found the man and said to him, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man replied, "And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" Jesus told him, "You have seen him. He is the one speaking with you." He said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped. Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, so that those who do not see may gain their sight, and the ones who see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees who were with him heard this and asked him, "We are not blind too, are we?" Jesus replied, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now because you claim that you can see, your guilt remains." So there we have it. John chapter 8, John chapter 9. This is some absolutely amazing and rich stuff. I want to jump up here and just point out a couple things that really stood out to me. And again, if you guys have got anything that really stood out to you, love to hear it. Love to hear what's going on. We'll kind of get to this a little bit, and then if you got any other questions, comments, concerns, what have you, well, let me know, and maybe we'll discuss them. And maybe I'll just continue drinking coffee. All right, so when I'm looking at this, I'm looking, and I kind of want to go here. One of the first things that really just kind of stands out to me is these guys, these Pharisees, it says in verse 3, experts in the law and the Pharisees, brought a woman who had been caught committing adultery. And then it says in verse 4, this woman was caught in the very act of adultery. Now, we are streaming on platforms, so without being too graphic, use your imagination. Caught in the very act of adultery. I'm sitting here and wondering, why were the Pharisees and the Sadducees trying to catch somebody in the act of adultery? Why would they even subject themselves to that type of a sight? Oh wait, it actually tells us. It says in verse 6, they were asking this in an attempt to trap him so they could bring up a charge. What this is, there's actually laws in the state against this, from like the leaders. They can't do what is called entrapment. But yet that's exactly what they were doing. They were trying to trip him up. They were trying to do that. And I love this. People bringing accusations against Jesus, and he just goes ahead and dismisses them because he's like, hey, whoever among you is without sin, go ahead, cast the first stone. I dare you. It's like none of them could. One by one, they have to leave. And then Jesus wraps this up with the woman, and he's sitting there and he's like, hey, where are they? Where are these people at? Where are your accusers? You look in verse 11 here. She says, they're not here. And Jesus says, well, I'm not going to condemn you either. So go and sin no more. Don't sin anymore. And this is something that I think when we have a true encounter with Jesus, he's calling us to a new life, a life outside of the sinfulness, just like this woman caught in an act of sinfulness. And she has this encounter with him. And he's like, I'm going to extend mercy and I'm going to extend grace. But that doesn't give you a license to continue to sin. I want you to go and sin no more. The Apostle Paul says the same thing about grace in Romans. He's like, what? So just because grace abounds, we can sin? Well, of course not. He's like, certainly not. That's not what we should be doing. And it's interesting because that grace, that unmerited favor that God gives us, I love how one of my Bible school teachers said that it's God's riches at Christ's expense. The acronym, GRACE. And the way that he does that, he provides these things that we don't deserve so that we can do better. And that's the thing that I just see him doing, and he's really trying to reach out to this woman, and he's trying to make sure that she can find this better life. So it's just kind of, man, it's so good. Jumping in here, Evan says that I never understood exactly what Jesus wrote in the sand. I don't either, and this is one of those things that, because anything that we would say is what is called extra biblical, means it's outside of the Bible. I don't know. I have an idea. Just from knowing the character, the nature of God and being close to him, and maybe it's because I can see some of his personality in me and the way that I do things. And honestly, I kind of wonder, and I think that maybe what Jesus was doing when he was sitting down and he was writing into the sand, he started listing out possible sins that were written in the law that all of these Pharisees and all these Sadducees would have known. And so he's writing out all of these sins, and he's like, hey, whoever among you is without sin, go ahead, cast the first stone. And then even though some started leaving and maybe some remained, he gets down and he starts to write some more stuff. I don't know, but that's just something that I kind of think that could work. It's like in these moments where I don't know what's actually in, there's so much of the story that we don't know. I just get creative in my mind, and I'm starting to think, well, if I was in that day, what would make sense? What could have been? And I'm not going to say you need to found try to build a doctrine on this by any means. Don't do that. This is an extra biblical thought that I have. But I believe the extra biblical thought actually kind of lines up with the heart and some of the motives of Jesus. So that's just something that I've kind of liked in there and thinking about that. I jump down here, and actually I just want to jump straight over, maybe not even in this. I mean, I love that it says, whom the Son has set free is free indeed. He's saying that this is who I am, and I came to set them free. But I honestly want to get over into verse or chapter 9, because here was something else that was in here. in chapter 9, and I just love this. It's something that we often do. This is Jesus' disciples up here in verse 2. Who committed sin that caused this man to be born blind? This man or the parents? And there's this prevailing thought among human beings that everything is a cause and effect, because that's how we see it. And because everything is cause and effect, that this is somehow an effect, we need to find the cause. And they're figuring the only two causes have to be that the parents sinned or that the man sinned. And Jesus, I love his response, because he's like, neither, but glorify God. And he's sitting there and he's like, neither. It says, but he was born so that the act of God may be revealed through what happens to him. Now, this is the New English Translation, and you need to understand that the New English Translation is kind of a balance between a literal word from the original Greek and Hebrew text and a paraphrase, which is thought for thought. So it's a balance between word for word and thought for thought, and it kind of blends those for readability. But I love other translations in this. Actually, it's like, if I can grab my Bible and I'll pull it up here. This is the New King James, and we're at John 9:3. Is that right? So John 9:3 out of the New King James, it says, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. And to me, that's something that it's a little bit more literal than that. It's like neither sinned, but glorify God. Neither sinned, but just glorify God in this. And that's something that I would really hope that we could start to do that, to see that even when there are things in our life that are starting to go bad, things in our life that are kind of a struggle on this, that we're dealing with, and we think, oh, well, maybe I did something wrong, maybe I didn't. I mean, even in this current age and time that we're setting in here, where people are kind of having this quarantine with COVID-19, and there's a lot of people like, oh, well, this must be God's judgment and wrath being poured out on us. I'm like, why are you even searching for that? In this case, he's just saying, just glorify God. And that's what I really wish people were doing. Stop trying to find fault and place blame. Just glorify God. See what God could do through this. See what God is doing in this. And that's what this guy's doing. The other thing that I really appreciate, and I mean really appreciate if I can find this, jumping down here, they bring him in. They're bringing him into the Sanhedrin. They're trying to talk to him. They're like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, do you really believe this is the Christ? Do you really believe? And then they try to put this man on trial and essentially saying, you know, he's a sinner. How can he do that? And I love it because he responds in one of the best ways, right here in verse 25. I don't know whether he's a sinner. I do know one thing, though. Although I was blind, now I can see. You're going to have, as Christians, a lot of people that are out there and a lot of people that are trying to bring an accusation against God. They're going to try to accuse God of doing something and saying, well, what about this contradiction in the Bible? Or what about that contradiction? Or if God is so loving and merciful, there's no if. He is. That's just who he is. He is a good father. He is full of mercy. He is full of grace, full of truth. That's just who he is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But people will sit there and they'll try to do that. If this happened, then what? I love this blind man. I mean, the blind man that can now see. I love his response. I don't know. But I'll tell you what I do know. He made me see. He healed me. And that's my encouragement for like every Christian out there. When we face those type of conversations, we're like, well, what about this? Instead, it's just like, I don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know. But do tell people what you do know. And that's what he's doing. He's like, hey, I don't know this, I don't know that. The one thing I do know is he made me whole. He restored my sight. So, anywho, those are a couple of my thoughts. I want to get in here and just kind of share some of yours in here. Shanda saying, hey, how you doing? I am good. I am tired, Shanda. That is what I'm doing. Shanda saying also, how did Jesus have the patience for the Jewish leaders always trying to catch him? You know, The only thing that I could sit here and say is that the way that Jesus was able to have the patience was because Jesus had the Spirit inside him. And as we can see through, oh man, tired, and now I'm not even going to get it right. What is it, Galatians 5:23, that the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I hope I got all of those. But one of the fruit of the Spirit, or another way of putting it would be one of the benefits of the Spirit, is that we can have patience. And I would sit there and say, because Jesus was full of the Spirit, he was able to have that patience and be with them. And I think it also helped that he understood what his role was, when his time was. Because as we see, here was one, they were trying to catch him, and they were going to pick up stones, and Jesus fled from them. But then we see, later on in the story of Jesus, when they finally came to get him in the garden, he knew it was coming, but he let them capture him at that point. And I think that was Jesus having a full understanding of who he had been called to be, who he was, and what he was called to do. And so that's kind of been my thoughts and understandings on this. So Dave Mathis sitting here, and he's like, I like this live streaming, and I'm looking forward to future ones. Little heart and cross emoji. Dave, thank you so much. I appreciate that. This has been fun. It's been interesting to just sit on here and read the Bible and then share a few thoughts. But it's kind of interesting. So Marilyn jumping on as well, saying that she's just on and listening. However, she can't get it loud enough. Marilyn, I apologize for that. I have noticed that with this streaming, it's been a little odd, and sometimes the audio is not quite coming up. So it's a new system, new platform I'm working with. So I'm still trying to work out some of those bugs. So I'll continue to play around with that and see how I can do that. Let me know what device you're on, whether you're on your computer or whether you're on a phone, or I know you're on Facebook, so just kind of let me know what you're on, and then maybe I can kind of help you troubleshoot why it's not, if it's not on my end. And then we've got Sanan. Oh, my friend, how you doing? He says, my favorite book. I love to read with you in my Sean language. Oh, I couldn't read the Sean language even if I tried, but I am so glad that they have the Bible in Sean. So it is absolutely amazing. So yeah, this is one of those that this type of a format, this type of a study, really, hey, if we're going to glorify God, if we're going to sit here and think kind of like the disciples when Jesus responds to them, don't worry about the cause. Don't worry about don't focus on what caused it. Instead, let's glorify God in this time. If we're sitting here and we're struggling with the COVID-19 and this, whatever we're going to call it, are we calling it an isolation, a sequestering, a quarantine, a seclusion? I don't know. There's a bunch of different words we could call it. And we could sit there and try to get wrapped up in the why did this happen? Instead, I want to encourage you guys to glorify God for what is happening in this. Because one of the big benefits of this is I've been on every single evening this week at 7 p.m. just reading the Bible. And had we not been doing this, I don't know as it would have happened. Eventually, I would have loved to read the Bible in a live stream. I don't know if I would have felt the urgency to really figure out how to do it like I have now. So let's give God the glory for that. Let's just praise Him for that. And let's also make sure that we're looking with that positive mindset of trying to see the good in things and find the things that are encouraging, that are beneficial, that are uplifting, because there's a lot of them out there. We just might have to look a little bit to find them. So that's kind of all we got for you guys tonight. Oh, wait, I did want to pull up. I saw one other comment that I had missed here, and it was from my boy Matt saying, I'm a Steelers fan, and we don't have a pick in round one, so we shall see how that goes. Hey, if it's anything like former years in the draft, there's going to be some amazing talent still in that second and third round. So, yeah, this draft is pretty deep on talent, so I think you guys will still wind up pretty good. Anyways, guys, that is what we've got going on. I just want to thank you so much for being here. I'm going to be back on tomorrow night. I believe we're going to hit chapter 10 and then chapter 11. Oh, John chapter 10. Yes, I love John chapter 10. So that's going to be a good one. We're going to have fun tomorrow night. So look forward to that. If you want to get a jump start on it, you can go ahead and read John chapter 10 and chapter 11. Join me tomorrow night. And then if you've got any questions, comments, observations that you see, I'd love for you to be able to share them with me. Now that's all I got. I'm going to go catch the rest of the NFL draft. Until tomorrow evening, I want you all to stay blessed, enjoy God's best. Have a great night.